Hey everybody, just switching over my cameras here. I don't know why I picked that one up first. Welcome to another Shoe Money show. I am. Oh, let me sort out some things here. Oh, nothing ever runs smooth. I swear to God. Let's see here. Okay, so my guest today is Kevin Henrikson, and Kevin is one of my favorite people on the planet, and I routinely talk about there's a handful of guys in this industry that I super trust, and I mean like literally a handful. And I get a lot of them on the show because they're good guys and they make great things. Kevin has a crazy successful story in that he was one of the founders of a email application that was free on the Apple Store and Android Store. And I'll let him tell that story. Kevin, welcome to the Shoe Money Skills and Pay the Bills show. How are you?
How's it going, Jeremy?
It's going fantastic, dude. I think just thank you so much for doing this. I know you did my radio show, which seems like a couple months ago. And since then, we got like sponsors and stuff that wanted video. So, you know, I was like, yeah, awesome. And Webmaster Radio was like, well, we can do video. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm not going to give you a giant cut. So anyway.
No, I think the setup, I was going to say the whole software was incredible, right? Like going through the process to kick it up and then it opens up 2 or 3 clicks later. It's probably one of the simplest. You want to use this for work, man. I mean, you go look at the way you do presentations today or you set something up. This was super easy, and you know, video quality is incredible.
Yeah, so this is Webinar Jam, and I've been using this for since we started doing this, and it's you know, Andy Jenkins did it as a typical IM launch, you know, do millions of dollars in a week, and then yeah. But the thing was, it's such good SaaS software that like they've over the last 2 years they're up to like 30,000 paying customers. So,
that's incredible, dude. I mean, you can see why I think it just works. I mean, I love the fact that it's based on Google, so it's going to work wherever, and it's like the video tech is going to continue to get better without having to invest in that. So I think it's a smart approach to it.
Yeah, really nice. They're going to roll out very shortly a version called Webinar Jam HD, which is going to allow you to use Amazon streaming services, and will simulcast into every platform that will do like Facebook Live. And
oh wow, so you can basically fork this same conversation into all the other like platforms and basically spin them off into whatever makes sense.
And
can you do like vines and stuff? Like I take like little clips. It'd be cool to have like a live editor grabbing like cool little loops and like busting out vines. That'd be a pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's actually like I've seen some of the stuff of it, but it's the only issue with Google Hangouts that people have made remarks about is that there's a delay. So like if someone asks us a question or Anna puts something in there, it's going to be about 20 seconds, 30 seconds before they're going to hear the answer to that. Whereas with like Amazon streaming services, it's about a 1 second delay. So,
okay, got it. So you can make it more real time. Because yeah, I guess that would, if you're really trying to have a really high bandwidth conversation, 2 or 3 questions a minute makes it a little tough to kind of go back.
Yeah, and it's interesting because people, like I was on one of their technical calls the other day, and they were talking to someone about like GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar, and they were talking about the technical hurdles versus them is like obviously they built out a lot more interactive stuff, but in addition to that, it's got like they were talking about GoToWebinar, GoToMeeting does 2 to 3 frames per second, where this you can't do real video over that, whereas this is obviously like 27 frames per second or whatever whatever standard it is. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Like we can put up polls. You can put up we can put an offer on the side if we want to sell something. Marketers use the shit out of it, but Yeah. So anyway, I really, really appreciate you coming on.
No, it's great.
Yeah. And so, do you mind just giving a like a lot of times I don't have people like go too much in background, and my listeners know like this is a lot different than like the show at Webmaster Radio and stuff, because it's not about like how to learn how to make money online. It's like if you want to listen to people who have done it and been successful and hear us bullshit about stuff, that's the fun.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Yeah. So, I got out of school in like the early 2000s when just the internet was blowing up. And I think, was a mechanical engineer by trade, but decided to do this software thing and stumbled onto software, and have been working at startups primarily in the email space for like the last 15 years. And most recently co-founded a company called Acompli, which was a mobile email app for iPhone and Android. And Microsoft acquired that about a year and a half ago, and today it's now Outlook for iOS and Android. And so today I run the mobile and the Mac team for Outlook, and it's been a crazy ride. And I think so, bouncing between little startups. Before that, I worked at a company called Zimbra, which similarly was an email SaaS startup that got acquired by Yahoo, and then subsequently VMware. It actually got sold twice, and learned a ton about email and startups, and it's great. And then my wife and I started a company about 8 years ago called Alpha Brand Media that was, initially a side project and then became her full-time gig. And the focus there was really internet marketing and a variety of sites. And so kind of took a bunch of internet marketing skills that I learned through that process of running small content sites and affiliate and advertising, and how that applies to kind of launching kind of larger VC-backed businesses, right? So a lot of the things we did, and I know you were helpful with our beta program with Acompli, and, promoting it out to your fans and saying, how do you grow something, and use some of the techniques that we had learned, as part of our growth process on the internet, to how do you apply that to growing, like a traditional product, or even in this case, a mobile app, right? And what are the notions of virality, and how do you get people to come back, and, why do people love your product? And so one of the things I've focused on a lot recently is around, how do you get better, right? So we have, over 40 million users use Outlook today on their phone on iOS and Android, and we're adding over 1 million users a week. But as that happens, like how, with that size of an audience, how do you learn? How do you get better? And so building systems where we can basically collect that user feedback, but use that as part of our product development process. So every week releasing new features, but using that kind of almost thinking of every week as an A/B test of making small changes, listening for feedback, and then making changes again, and kind of constantly following that process to continue to release better and better product week over week.
Yeah, it's crazy. And so for those, the number obviously that gets everyone's attention is you guys sold for $200 million.
Yeah, that's what the press said.
You're not allowed to confirm or deny?
I do not confirm or deny.
Yeah, my man.
The press was very accurate.
Okay. There you go. So yeah, I think that it's it's an amazing story. First you were involved with Zimbra, right? Which was that like your first like entry level into the mobile space?
Yeah, I think, so that was the first time I'd worked on mobile. OpenWave and had done some mobile stuff, but it was really for feature phones. And so moving into Zimbra was the first time we kind of did, really email. And mobile there was still pretty nascent. It wasn't that popular. And we presented Zimbra at the very first Web 2.0 conference, so JavaScript and Ajax. So it was really about bringing the power of the browser back to applications. And now, of course, you go to most applications and they're incredibly rich with JavaScript and incredibly full-featured applications on the web. And Google's kind of shown some of the amazing stuff that you can do in the browser and Facebook and all these apps today that have incredibly rich, full-fledged applications running inside of a browser, which is incredible. And so Zimbra did that, and then we also had kind of our first lead into mobile. But again, mobile was still pretty early there, right? The iPhone launched, when we were as part of when we were running Zimbra, right? So there was no iPhone when we started Zimbra, and so as part of that, the iPhone launched, and we were one of the early companies to support the iPhone for email and learning how that worked and learning those skills. And a lot of that kind of experience accrued to the point that when we decided to leave VMware and start Acompli, that we knew that mobile was kind of the next thing, and we figured starting from scratch and writing a client that was designed for heavy email users and even casual ones, but really people that really wanted to get the most out of email on their phone was a great thing. And Microsoft agreed with us, and then and it was aligned with the vision that they had for Outlook going forward, and so it worked out really well.
Yeah, it's perfect. I mean, how much did they change? Because it was integrated with Dropbox and all that. And I mean,
Yeah, so all that's still there. So like I mean, we've really added to the feature set. In fact, we've even really expanded it. Shortly after we were acquired, Microsoft acquired another company called Sunrise, which was just incredibly designed, like really polished calendar application, probably the top calendar application on iPhone and Android. And we're able to take that team and merge it into our Outlook team. And so now we have this combined incredible design talent with these great calendar features. If you think about it, the goal for Outlook is how do we get to whole day use, right? Like when you wake up in the morning, you grab your phone and check email. When you go to the office, you may use a browser, you may use Outlook on your desktop. And then in the evening or on your commute on the train, or you're riding transit or whatever it is, or you're sitting at the dinner table checking emails, you're back to your phone, right? So the idea is like this idea that no matter where you are, the interface to your email is the same. And the features that we initially started on mobile and some of the ones that are on desktop are now cross-pollinating. And so things that made sense only on mobile, we just launched Focus Inbox. We took this crazy cool feature called Interesting Calendars from the Sunrise team. So now you can go into Outlook and add like all the Olympic teams, right? So like you can say, hey, I want to follow badminton, or I want to follow this particular swimming race, or I want to watch the opening ceremony, and it'll instantly overlay those events on your calendar. And so you can schedule, it'll basically block your calendar so you can go watch Olympic games. And we added it for all the popular sports as well. So NFL, baseball, basketball, et cetera. So you can add your teams. And so those can block on your calendar, and they're there for you to look at that, which is pretty sweet.
I think it's awesome. I'm a big fan. I mean, Kevin, me and you have been on some adventures together.
Yeah.
And it's really, really been a lot of fun to get to know you a lot. And just you're such a fascinating guy from day one that I met you. I mean, it's so interesting to see like from the first time you ever went to the Elite Retreat, and you went to the first.
Yeah, in San Antonio. That was in 2007-ish, 5-ish, 7-ish, I guess, something like that.
Right.
Almost 10 years ago. It's coming up on the 10-year anniversary, I think, of something like that, which is incredible, right? I mean, yeah, it was great. I mean, it was one of your first conferences. I think it was the first conference you ran for this kind of an event, really small, intimate conference. And I met a bunch of great people that I'm still in contact with, which is cool. And, including yourself, I think we've done, a bunch of events since there, together. And I think it's been incredible to learn not just the way you grew your business and the way the way you built your companies and sold your companies, and then how do we kind of compare notes and sort of, hey, what you're doing and what you're doing, and we constantly ping each other for advice. And I'd love to reach out to you and say, hey, Jeremy, what would you do in this situation? Or you've been on all these crazy like trademark things and cool experiences with interesting legal and cases that I think you're super transparent about. And that was one thing that I think I valued a lot as part of the Elite Retreat in early days, just meeting you, is that you were incredibly transparent with how you built things and how things worked and how they and how you achieved success and where you failed, right? And I think you end up learning a lot from both of those. And I think that's been incredibly insightful for me and something that I've continued to cherish and leverage as I move forward and say, hey, hey, what would you do in this situation? And I think both of us kind of having those shared experiences, sometimes in different technology sectors, but at the end, both trying to just build successful businesses and finding ways to, add value to the users.
Yeah, I think it's amazing because I remember when I first met you, it was in San Antonio, like you said, and you were like, hey, Shumani, I want to talk to you about something. So you showed me this Google campaign you were doing, which was absolutely brilliant, and that you were running very well. And it's you were buying paid traffic and doing this affiliate offer. And I do remember what it was, but I don't know if we want to say what it was. It wasn't anything like crazy sketchy or anything.
No, we can talk about it. It was running AdWords. I mean, it's been long enough now that the programs are disabled now. But the motto was pretty. Google had this affiliate offer. It was before it was really even called. It was like a product offer or something. It was Google Pack, and so you could download this Google Pack, and it included I think it was before Chrome, so it was just a toolbar extension for IE. It was Google Search. It was a number of things that you could basically add on to what you're doing and enhance your PC. Google Earth was another one. And what we found was that a lot of the people that would want to download Google Pack would want to use Google Earth. Google Earth was, had just been acquired. The company had just been acquired by Google. And so what we were doing was just simply advertising on very simple terms, and found out that the word Earth, which you could buy for a nickel, converted incredibly well on AdWords to folks to download the Google Pack. And they would pay you, I think in the US, I think at the time they were paying you $2 for install, and we were buying the word earth for a nickel. And so $2 to a nickel with a very high click-through rate made quite a good little business for a while there, and it was really fun. And yeah, now unfortunately they've shut that program down, and they don't have they ended up buying DoubleClick, right? I moved it to Performix, and a bunch of changes happened on that side, and now that whole program doesn't exist anymore. But it was incredible times. I think a lot of these kind of call them internet fads or whatever they were, if you're there at the right time and find the right connection, it's really incredible. And I think I've always thought about how do you leverage that experience, right? Where when you find something that's working, you just push on it, right? And in our case, we really scaled up the campaigns and pushed on how we were working hard, and it did really well for us for many months there.
Yeah, sorry about that. My nanny and my kid are going somewhere, and they wanted money, and I was like, I don't even have my wallet. But that's the fun of doing a show live.
Keep it real live. I should have just done this conference walking around the office, or went down on Market. So I'm in San Francisco, so I could go down to Market Street and just interview some man on the street kind of stuff and get some opinions of the folks running around on Market this afternoon. But I figured I might lose my Wi-Fi, and we'd really be testing this thing over some bridged LTE, which wouldn't be as interesting.
Yeah, that would be interesting how it would perform over LTV. I mean, I think Facebook fascinates me and also makes so much sense at the same time. I mean, a lot of people didn't get the Instagram acquisition and stuff, and I was like, man, it's just about real estate, like their user base.
Yeah.
And when they did the live thing, it was like, yeah, okay. What was that? Periscope?
Yeah.
Like, okay, bye Periscope. We got.
Yeah. No, I mean, but you basically, they have this, they just announced, right? They have over 1 billion users on the on the platform, and I think almost 1 billion or just over 1 billion mobile only users, which is incredible. Yeah, something like that. There's an incredible number of. I mean, they have 1 billion mobile users. There's an incredible number of users, and to me, this is just this platform that they can build on, and so things that they do launch are incredibly interesting, right? And how they keep you interested, right? And if you look at the way the Facebook feeds kind of evolved, from purely a time wasting thing to like catching up with your friends to like time wasting with games to back to like drifting off into like keeping connections. But I mean, the core value is that richness of that social network, right? And the number of people and the diversity of the people that you would have lost touch with, right? Like my high school reunion or college kind of get-togethers would never have been the same if we wouldn't have built those networks. And in fact, Facebook wasn't around when I was in high school, right? So we built that after the fact. But the fact that got built, and that now when we can have reunions, you can just go and announce it and list it and connect to people, and it's really the power, right, of kind of software and just kind of SaaS in general. And that's like the social version of software. And you talk about how do you go build something that's reachable? You look at what we built on the phone, right? I mean, we put this thing out there, and it's in 100 countries, right? It's 90 countries or something. It's incredible, right? Like the reach it has, and millions and millions of users are able to see it. And I was just in China earlier this month, or last month, I guess, in early July, and we're building a team out there, which is incredible. But some of the things that we're seeing that they have, right? If you've probably heard of WeChat, right? And like this kind of chat mechanism that's people use it in the U.S. for messaging. It's like a WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger here in the U.S. But when you go to China, it's used everywhere. And the thing that was incredible about it was that the trust factor that they've built. Like Facebook has this notion of like, well, I'm not sure what my privacy settings are. If I post this, I'm not sure who's going to see it or not. But in WeChat, it's incredibly favorable to the user. So like when you even connect with somebody, you say, I'm just connecting with you, or I'm connecting with you and I'll share. Like it's a very binary thing up front where you can make that decision. And so one of the popular use cases, you walk into a store and you think of like, hey, let me sign up for your Safeway card or your Starbucks card or whatever. No, in this case, you just go in and you connect the store with WeChat. So each little small business has WeChat, and they encourage it, right? They're like, if you do this, I'll give you 20% off. And if you pay with WeChat, I'll give you another 10% off, right? Because they've built that connection as a marketing. Like they have this like little hyper segment in marketing. They know what you bought and they can track you. But people do it because they're trustworthy, that they know they're just connecting with that store. Well, and they know that they actually don't get your information. Like they don't get your phone number and your email. They only get your WeChat like ID, which is a single token that's just for you for that connection to the store. So like that token's not useful if they sell their business and buy a new one. They can't take those tokens. Like it's just good for that instance, which is very different from the way that we would like sign up for a Safeway card or Starbucks card, because I have to get my phone number or my email, and like that, if they go get hacked or lost or bought, like that data's gone, right? And so yeah, so I think WeChat has been something that's just total random tangent, but it was something that was incredible on my visit that I saw that That, and then I saw the popularity of Didi, right? That now they just announced last week or this week, I guess, that now Uber China is going to get sold to Didi, and they're merging, right? And so I used both Didi and Uber, and Didi was just more popular, right? And it was like very clear, right? And the drivers were saying how people were aggressively paying the benefits and the kind of kickbacks and promotions to get the drivers to drive more or use one of the other platforms. And so that was also pretty see. And then to have that news announced, a couple weeks after I came back, that Uber was actually going to pull out of China essentially by merging with Didi. But really? I guess it looks well for the rest of the company. So yeah, it's
so Didi is like that. That's just a overseas thing, like an Asian thing?
It's a local Chinese company that basically launched Uber, right? Think of it as Uber for China, and they're really they've actually were really smart about it. So they launched in China, and they went and invested in all of the competitors of Uber around the world. So they invested in Lyft, they invested in Ola, they invested in all of the national kind of second place competitors in all the various geos. And then they went and competed head to head and raised, billions of dollars, just like Uber did. Not as much. I think they were valued at like 30-some billion. Uber's at 65. But they basically made a run for it in China. Yeah, billions, 35 billion.
Uber.
And then they basically, yeah, it's incredible. And then they basically, they were able to push Uber to a point that Uber decided not to compete and said, hey, just agree to be friends, and they invested in each other's company, and now the merger's happening. And so
they agreed to be friends. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean,
why isn't Lyft?
What are you going to do, right?
Why isn't Lyft friends? Why isn't Lyft in the inner circle there?
That's a great question. I think in that case, Uber's just got a much more dominant lead. I mean, to be honest, right? Uber's winning everywhere except in China. Didi was the only country
in the Midwest.
Yeah,
in the Midwest, like Lyft has a foothold.
Yeah. It's got a foot. I mean, even in San Francisco, it's got a foothold. But I was actually, I commute to work a lot of times in Uber because this Uber pool has become so inexpensive. It's cheaper than parking in San Francisco these days because they've driven down the cost because you share a ride and you split, your ride with a bunch of other folks.
Oh yeah.
On the Uber pool. So I mean, like it used to cost, let's say 5 years ago to take a cab before Uber. A cab from my house to the city was about $100. So 30 miles, about $100. Then Uber Black launched, and it got it down to about 65, 70. And then Uber X launched, and it got it down to $40. And now it's less than $10 to take Uber Pool. Now, it takes a little longer, right? Because you may stop and pick people up. But if you think of that scale of like efficiency driving down, right? From like the $100 cab ride down to, something less than $10, 95, 93% discount over just, a 5-7 year period, right? This isn't even a decade. And, that's incredible. So I think Lyft has been a big part of that, right? I mean, Lyft's out there competing, and, Uber was only Uber Black, and the whole Uber X thing kind of came, at least what it appeared to be, Lyft was much quicker with the kind of community drivers and that model. And I think Lyft's still very popular in the city, but I think in terms of like total ridership, I think Uber is just completely dominating. I know when I was in Omaha for the Warren Buffett conference, last time I was out there, for the shareholder meeting, like, Uber was just kind of launching like a year ago, right? Or maybe it was 2 years ago. And now I'm sure it's probably getting more and more popular as more folks are using it.
Yeah, Lyft has always been, when Lyft kind of came to the area, they made a big announcement in the newspaper, and it was like, we'll put $100 in your account when you're approved. They did this giant, I thought it was brilliant, boots on the ground. And I think they probably targeted a lot of cities with population, between like 100,000 to 500,000 maybe.
Okay.
And so like they did it in Lincoln, and we have no Uber. Like if you try to use Uber, there's nobody. They just did like this huge, and if I remember right, it was like an exclusivity thing as well.
Interesting.
So they just got so many people, and then so many people here quickly discovered like, oh, there's no Uber, there's Lyft. And so, just around here, you just get barely anyone ever mentions Uber. It's always like Lyft, Lyft, Lyft.
Wow.
And yeah, it's like, I think that is where a lot of like companies, like I think that's where Groupon started to go around.
Yeah. Groupon was the hyper local. Oh yeah, for sure. And I think the interesting thing there is you wonder if there's a potential at some point Lyft starts to come up and build a niche market, for these smaller markets, but they do it in a way that's incredibly scalable, that makes it a somewhat defensible, right? Because it doesn't have the foothold for Uber to come make that run at it yet. But we'll see. Like where my parents, where I grew up, and where my parents, in Central California. And similarly, like you'd see like a little bit of action on Uber. Like if you're on the freeway, you could catch one. It'd be like a 30-minute wait. And then over time, it became like 15 minutes. And now it's like 12 minutes. It's still not, the 1 minute, like here in San Francisco, when you push the button, it's like, boom, somebody's like literally they're right here already, which is great. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it can be. I love the technology, right? And the fact that they've been able to leverage, like, it's just an incredible app for today's mobile phone and kind of a mobile user. And so I'm a huge fan to just follow it.
I think I was looking at Groupon stock and some other things, and I used to get forwarded Groupon deals all the time, and I don't remember. It's been years since somebody has sent me one. Are they just completely tanked, or
is this? Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. Like, I know the stock was really down for a while, and they had some management issues, and the team turned over there. But I haven't really followed it. I don't even know where they're at. I haven't looked at it in a while. But you're right. I mean, in terms of hearing about them, or what was the other one? Living Social,
right?
Was the other one that was in that same space. Similarly, lots of flash deals and things like that.
Now, I know that it's going because the Bulu Box guy from Omaha,
yeah,
they did a thing on there, and they did like 7,000 units.
So they're moving products, yeah.
Yeah, so I personally think Groupon failed. One, they were too greedy from a money perspective, and two, they
extracted too much out of each deal, like the profit wise, like they were taking too much off the deals.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of know my model. I wouldn't have taken anything.
Yeah,
I would have just I wouldn't have taken anything.
Just scale and get the usage. Yeah,
right. Because most of these companies, obviously, I don't know any of them that could possibly make money, right? It's just
right.
It's just honestly like to get,
it's loss leaders. They're loss leaders. Hey, I'm giving you a free sandwich to the hopes that you like my sandwiches and come back. But like, yeah, it's
right, because they take a good chunk of it. So I mean, if it was me, and obviously it's not, and it's playing, Monday whatever quarterback. I mean, like just my basic model would have been to give it away for free. Get gigantic market share, which they did a good job on that by their own. But then get super local. Like I'm talking, when I say boots on the ground, I mean like people walking into businesses.
Into every small business and being like, hey, Subway, let's go do this thing. Or, hey, Jeff's Deli, let's go do this.
Or like, hey, local chain of Subways, literally like some, let's go into Coddington Dental and, they're going to give away X amount of teeth whitenings, but they're only going to do 10. You know what I mean? Like you get so
right. Make it exclusive or have some kind of scarcity to it to drive that interest around it.
Right. And the funny thing is our newspaper, somebody developed software that obviously it's not rocket science, but they sold it to like our local Lincoln, Nebraska called Lincoln Journal-Star has they are running like Groupon-esque offers.
Oh.
So you'll get
so some kind of white labelable SaaS platform that they can run with it.
Right. Yeah. It's it's just one of those things. Like, like Woot had its day. I still use it. I just 99% of the junk on there, I just am like, it doesn't go anywhere, but
yeah.
Like buy $20 Chromebook, or something that comes like in this basically like a pop can aluminum casing, and mine didn't even power on. So I was just like, whatever.
It's $20. You're like, oh.
Yeah, literally, like, what do I expect? So whatever.
I got a random question. How's the website doing these days? What are you guys doing on the website on shoemoney.com?
Oh, it's good. Like with my position in life, it's just more about I don't write that much because I'll write, when I have something to share with the world that I think is of value, but it's like, the blog posts and stuff, I don't post just to post, right? Like John Chow has a bunch of, ghostwriters, guest writers that works for him really well. For me, it's kind of like, it's my voice and stuff like that. And so, I used to back in the day, cause I was always learning new stuff, and now a lot of the stuff is, it's interesting, but, for the most part, it's more of a branding thing for me now at this point. I kind of feel like I'm in a position where as far as me doing my own thing, I'm always I just can't help it.
Yeah.
But as of right now, there's a couple companies that I'm just, working with, they'll have me jump on calls and get, somebody's selling them SEO or they're, using this Facebook agency and they're blowing like 10 grand a day, but they don't even know how to hold them accountable to anything. They're like, yeah, we're spending 10 grand a day on Facebook. And I'm like, what kind of ROI are you getting? I don't know. It's bringing a lot of people. And I'm like, okay, well, let's set up pixels, you know, like
classic spray and pray, right? Have no idea what the model is and backing it out.
Absolutely. So, you know, as far as shoemoney.com, when you go there, it's more like me branding, and also like it gives you access to our free program, which is, I mean, you saw it back in the day, and it used to like require people to buy web hosting to go forward. And that was because we were paying people, you know, to actually build their site.
Yeah.
So now we've got rid of that. So we don't pay you, but web hosting is now required. Okay. So yeah, so it's like if you want to do a blogger thing, go for it. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like it's been interesting to see, you know, the web hosting refunds are like, you know, below 5%, where they were up around 20%. You know,
that's a great metric to look back at the refunds as an indicator of how successful the project is. Yeah, the program.
Yeah, we get a lot of, I mean, we have a very, very busy, you know, Google group from our users. I know there's a lot of them that are live on here or will watch this. It's great. I mean, it's been really great to see all the cool stuff that people build, you know, and I never bill it as you're going to make, this is the thing, but it's like, you know, it's there, and there have been more self-made millionaires via WordPress platform than like anything else in the world. I mean,
No. I mean, by far the website, and again, you know, we talked about this earlier, with just the internet being the scale of the world, right? And being able to like put up a website and you can reach anybody in the world. Like, that's pretty incredible, right? Like, and I think, you know, I know that when we started Alpha Brand Media, like early on, like that was some of the interesting things we saw, is that we, you know, as we started to get these sites and write about sites, we were like, people were coming from all over the world, right? Like, yeah, there was US traffic, or there's focused on South America or this area, but the rest of the world is incredibly large. And as internet penetration reaches the level that it's at now, it's really good. And I think, and we saw that again when we launched the company, right? Like, we had users on day one from tens of different countries, right? And that's kind of cool. And now there's, you know, probably upwards of 100, right? And I think the mobile, you know, kind of space and building mobile apps is a much higher bar, right, than versus starting a website. But I think you can just see these kind of things connecting together and where that goes, which is, it's really going to be fascinating.
So we talked about me, and like, for me, like, I kind of just like, I've got two little girls that are 8 and 10 now. They're outstanding. I know you have a child now. And gosh, how old's your girl now?
She's 6. So she turned 7 in October. So yeah, so just finished kindergarten, or she's in her camps this summer and hanging out. And yeah, Brooke is amazing. And she's
awesome. Gosh, it's so fast.
Yeah, grow up.
So yeah, so I mean, like, with me, like, I'm in such a different position where, like, you know, tomorrow I'm going to take my girls to the state fair. You know, today I took them, had breakfast, they went with me, I washed my car. You know, I was on like a conference call with one of these companies I'm working with, just listening to their onboarding process of this SEO company.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, I have a field day with that. So, because I hold their feet to the fire, I ask the right questions, you know, and the weird thing is, it's like, you know, yeah, they pay me, you know, a good chunk of money per month. And a lot of people would be like, geez, Louise, like, you only have to talk to them for like, and I'm like, yeah, but you got to realize, like, me on one call, asking the right, like, these people are spending, you know, 10 to 50 grand, in some cases 100,000 a month.
Yeah.
If I ask a right question or something that, you know, like,
you can make a material difference. Yeah.
Yeah. They're losing, like, this. I have a feeling this one company that's doing Facebook advertising for this other company is probably, I know they're taking a percentage of ad spend, like 15%. Plus they're paying like a monthly management fee. So they're probably, I think they're probably getting paid, like, I probably shouldn't say this, but to share, but I mean, there's like 6 companies I'm working with right now. So, but people are going to guess which one it is. Anyway, I haven't been too public about that, but right now, like, when I sold Par Program, you know, it was it wasn't a huge windfall for me, but it was cool. But I was kind of like, you know, like, what else do I have to achieve? You know,
sure.
I've, you know, won awards. I've, you know, done this. I put away a bunch of cash to secure my family.
What are you doing to teach your daughters to act like you? Like, it's one thing I think about a lot is, you know, we each grew up the way we grew up and have stumbled into the life we are, you know, building companies and, and working in this space, like how do you think about, or do you think about, like, how do you teach these same skills to your daughters so that they can have this same kind of path, or at least have the freedom to make the choice that, you know, may or may not lead them down a path like this?
Yeah, so I have different views on this, like really different views. And I want to write, you know, like my first book was totally my autobiography. The next one I want to do collaboratively with people like you and just all these successful people that have, you know, money and probably weren't brought up with a silver spoon, and write a book called How Not to Fuck Up Your Kids. Okay. And so then they may not be that's a running title. Okay. I don't know what it'll be called. Working title, right? Exactly. So like my thought on it is like a lot of people are like, you know, don't grow up your kids so that they have this, you know, entitlement, you know, mentality, and you know it's okay to lose, and you know all this. And I'm like, no, you are a shoemaker. Like you are the daughters of shoe money. Like you deserve to have like not because of me, but just like I always thought of me, and this is gonna totally sound egotistical, as like like I was chosen for a reason to put on this earth, and it wasn't to live, or I mean it wasn't to exist, it was to fucking live. And you know all the adventures I've done with between the legal system and all this other stuff, like I fucking lived. And you know, and my kids, I want them to know that like they're put on here for a reason. Like, I don't want them to feel like, you know, that they have things coming to them. And I teach them all the time. It's like, you don't get stuff because you deserve it or it's fair. You get it because you take it. So, you know, when there's like my daughter was running for, my daughter's running for class president. Okay. She's 9, right? This was last year. I was talking to her about, you know, strategically positioning things to where, you know, like, hey, let's like, who are the key leaders like in your thing? Like I'll come in Friday and I'll bring McDonald's for everybody, and I'll have a discussion about who's voting for Juliet, you know, like who's, you know, like who wants McDonald's like once a week, you know, like just joking, but kind of like, and my wife is like, you shouldn't do that, you should let things go. My wife is a totally like, you go to school, you do this, and then you become an anesthesiologist and you get what you deserve, and that's fair.
Yeah.
Well, okay, and that's great for her, and she followed the path and she got the reward. But
incredible doctor,
yeah, she's outstanding. And my wife is a play by the rules, and you know, you get what's this, and I'm not. I'm like, you get what you take out of life. And you know, I'm not nothing's fair. And I try to do that with my girls. Is just it's hard for me to explain it like right in a second, but I don't want, like I said, I don't want them to feel like to take anything for granted or to feel like they're special. Well, actually, no, I want them to feel like they're special. I want them to feel like almost pressure them.
Yeah, but own it, right? Like you want to own that experience where they can come in and they can have the command to say, hey, I want to make this path, or I want to be aggressive on this, or I want to take an active role, or I want to be more passive.
I don't want them to think like it's okay to lose, it's okay to fail. But at the same time, I want to teach them like my most valuable educational experiences was what a lot of people would consider failures. And you know, like you can't get that education if you don't fucking try. And so, you know, that's like what I'm trying to instill in them. And actually it's worked, I mean, really well. Like I want to give them a lot of it is self-confidence. Like like they're already doing some public, they're totally fine, you know, with public speaking and doing, you know, stuff like that. And, you know, I love their self-confidence because, you know, when you're comfortable with yourself and you're comfortable with getting up in front of your class and giving a presentation or other stuff. And I mean, that was something for me, even through high school, that was very intimidating. It took me, I mean, a long time to ever be comfortable presenting on stage. But, you know, for them, I mean, this is.
But it's so powerful, right? Once you can do that and once you take advantage of that and once you get used to it, like it's an incredibly empowering thing, both for yourself, but also for others around you, right? To say that, hey, we can go make this happen.
Right. And whether they want, no matter what they want to do, I just want them to realize like that every opportunity is there. So if you want, you know, like you can always advance. There's a book out there called, it's about shortcuts, but it's called something else, something cuts, smart cuts or something like that. But it analyzes like all of these, like how does a 25-year-old kid get to become like this high-powered person in this company when, you know, you know what I mean? Like smart cuts.
Yeah.
That's what it's called. But, you know, like, that's what I want my kids to understand is like, yes, play by the rules, but you really get somewhere by like recognizing when an opportunity presents itself and then seizing that opportunity. And so,
yeah, I think it's recognizing opportunities, being able to work hard to go achieve them, right? Because a lot of things, I had this thing when I used to talk to, students that were looking for either internships or graduated from college. And it was like, it's one of these things where, set of rules, right? Like, when change happens, like that's when you want to work the hardest. Like when things are moving and things are fluid, like you want to just take that extra work to sprint ahead a little bit. And then, more than often than not, you come out ahead because you put the extra energy in when things were a little uncertain, right? Where you get the passive notion where things are uncertain, you kind of hold back and chill out, and then you end up, 4 or 5 steps behind because somebody else who leaned a little forward during that and pushed a little harder. And yeah, it's an incredible thing. Like, yeah, we always think about with our daughter Brooke, how can you, instill like and understand like the importance of running a small business or like customer satisfaction, taking care of users, and being customer centric and understanding what people need. And yeah, it's great that I always like to ask folks, how they're thinking about that and what their view is on how they, expect to be able to try to instill some of that same spark that we, that successful folks have, like, or, that have had some success in business, to be able to push that back into your children and say, hey, how do they get that same advantage?
Yeah, I think I totally like misrepresented my thoughts, and I need to actually put them on paper, because it's not like my kids work really hard. Like we have them doing chores and stuff, and my wife,
do you pay them for chores, or is there an allowance? Like, what's your model for financial like incentives around that?
We have a chore chart.
Okay.
And they're punished if they don't do it.
Got it.
We don't like give them, I mean, we buy them shit, when they, I mean, a lot of the shit that I buy them is because I want them to have it, not because they, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
You
need a new drone, or you need a new toy because you want to play with it.
Dude, when they were like 4, I bought them like these Vulcan Nerf guns, which are like 50 cal on the thing guns. Like, it was just like I was buying all this crazy shit for that, like I bought them like the Barbie cars,
Nice.
that cruise around and
all the things you wanted when you were a kid. You're like, I wish I had this thing when I was 7 or 4 or whatever. Yeah. Looks
cool. Like I got them hoverboards, and as soon as those came out, and my oldest has had,
do you have any battery issues? I've always heard people saying they've had these battery issues with the hoverboards or whatever.
No, there was one brand that got, that actually caught on fire. And so then that was they catch on fire, but it was just one brand that did it. And then it's weird because my kids actually, like, I'm always on their ass because they'll leave them out in the rain, or I got them for them for Christmas. So they left them outside in the snow, and these things still work. These ones that we have.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm really impressed.
You should put them on the website and recommend them to people, because you're like, this one works.
So this was a moment that made me super proud. Was my daughter, like my wife was like, you should teach Juliet how to sell stuff online. And I was like, okay. So I think it's still up. If you go to potholders.wordpress.com. Yeah, it is. So it's potholders.wordpress.com. There's my daughter, Juliet. Okay, this was years ago. And okay, so basically, like, she sells, I had her do a sales video. Okay.
Dude, that's awesome.
I know. I had her do a sales video. We did a little copy. And then there's this buy button. Okay. That goes to PayPal. So I post this link on Facebook. And so they're $15 or $3 shipping and handling. And I posted on Facebook, and it sells like 35, like, in an hour or something like that. And so my wife is like flipping shit now. And she's like, okay, seriously, take that off. Take it down. And I'm like, why? And she's like, it took her 2 weeks to make one. And I was like, well, what do you want me to do?
That's funny.
You wanted me to do this. So Juliet looks at me and says, but we can buy them at Target for $4. And I was like, that's my kid.
Yep.
You could arbitrage this. So we didn't do that. She ended up making them and sending them out, but over a long period of time, and my wife helped out. But I thought that was awesome that she like saw the angle of arbitrage right there.
Yeah, you fill the orders. So
yeah. So it's funny that site. I couldn't believe nobody had potholders. I guess it's not a big thing, but
it's a new market. I like it.
it's funny because in her video, actually, like, it says like we're raising money for the bums or something like that.
Okay.
Like, I told her what to say. Gosh, she was 5 years old when we did this. Anyway,
that was what, 4 or 5 years ago, 3 years ago.
Yeah, well, she's 10. So
so 5 years ago. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Man, time just. I always tell people this. I'm like, my parents always told me like your kids enjoy them because they go so fast. Once they like move into the asset column, like, you know, you can have a conversation with them. They can get you a beer, you know, like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like it does. It just like once you can do stuff with them. And one of my friends who, well, it's my godson. That kid went from like 8 to 18 like overnight. It's just like.
Well, no, my daughter was. We were at this amusement place, and they had I was in Tokyo, and we had this grabber, like those grabber machines. You know, it's like seen them in every mall, like the crane machines. And she was playing. She's like, "Dad, just, you know, I'm looking. Nobody's winning. Like, who's winning here?" And I'm like, "Oh, the guy that owns it's winning." She goes, "Well, he's not even here." And I'm like, "That's right. He's not here, and he's winning." She's like, "I got it." So he comes at night, gets all the money, puts it back in, and he can buy whatever he wants. And I'm like. And he gets first pick on the toys too.
Yeah.
He just picked up the ones. This is what he didn't want. And so now I've been investigating, like, you know, you can go rent these machines. They're a couple $1,000. You can probably buy them on eBay for $1,000. But I'm like, wouldn't it be cool to get a machine and set it up and be like, this is your little business. You load it with the toys you don't want. Kids come in and feed it, you know, a couple bucks, and they can pick out toys. But what's incredible is I've been reading about it. There's actually a setting on these things. It's like a slot machine. How often do you want them to win? It's like basically the claw never works. And then you just set it from 0 to 99 of how many like weak claws, and then until it does a strong claw. And so it's just this dip setting. You set the thing in the back, and they said, we recommend about 5 to keep people really happy and motivated. But if you want to milk it out, set it to 25, and the thing will only win 1 out of 25 times.
That's awesome.
But it's all about claw strength. And so it's literally like a, you know, binary thing. You're setting it in there how often. But I thought that was a great experience. So when she was like, well, wait, who's winning here? And I was like, yeah, that's the person that's winning is whoever owns this. He or she is not here.
So when you
absentee owner.
Okay, so jumping. I've wanted to ask you, so like I talked about my position, you know, where it's just like, you know, like what do I want to do for the rest of my life? And really like my kids are my legacy. So I try to spend as much time with them as I can. And just, you know, yesterday I took my oldest at night, or my youngest, putt-putt golfing. It was, you know, just me and her and whatnot. And so it's just like, but, you know, like you are in a position better than me, you know, like financially. But it's like, you know, what keeps you motivated? I'm sure you have some sort of earn out to stay at Microsoft or incentive or some part of that deal, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, the motivation is really about having fun, right? Like, I mean, part of it's you got to have fun with what you're doing. Like, you know, there is, you know, you have enough that, hey, I can make my rent payment. Hey, I have the car that I want or whatever. And, you know, but then you got to have fun what you're doing. And I think, you know, you could argue that, hey, you could just go home and sit at home and play video games all day. And I'm not a big video gamer, so that would be super depressing because I'd lose all the time. But I think the bigger thing is, you know, you're having fun doing what you're doing. And I earnestly like building companies. I earnestly like building things. I love watching Outlook grow. I love, you know, doing what we're doing and watching the impact of what me and my team have, right? And I think, to me, right? Like, you know, think of it as like when you go to the gym and you work out and you're like, wow, I'm getting stronger. I'm able to keep score. And like, you know, so, you know, keeping score with how much money you make is one way, but I think there's more in other ways to do that, right? I mean, what's your project? Like, are you hitting the metrics you want to hit? Can you set like outrageous goals and then chase them down, right? Like, and so I think the way I like to think about it is, you know, the right way to keep the motivation together is you need to make sure that you're increasingly setting bigger goals, right? Like if your goal was, hey, just to get to work every day and get home by 5 and drink a few beers, like that's a goal, right? And there's people that have that goal and like, hey, I just don't want to work overtime. I want to make enough between 9 and 5 to be able to chill out and hang out with my family, right? And then you say, oh, no, I want my goal to be even loftier things where I'm chasing like some larger product thing, or I'm chasing some, like, I want to have impact on millions of users. Okay, well, now Outlook's shipping to millions of users. Okay, what's the next change, right? And I think, you know, I don't know, right? I think right now what I'm doing here at Microsoft is fun. Like I enjoy what I'm doing. The team is incredible. Like we brought an incredible team with us from Acompli. We were, you know, had the Sunrise folks join us, which was another gift, which was incredible. And now we've been able to hire really, really good people to complement them, right? And so the team's growing in a measured way with people we love. And I think being able to do things you love. And you always hear this like cliche thing with jobs, getting up in the morning, and Steve would say, hey, if you look in the mirror and say, do I really want to do what I'm about to do today? And the answer is no. Enough days in a row, you need to make a change, right? And I think right now I really love what I'm doing. Like, it's fun to be part of this. And I think, I'm still kind of, as a father of one of the co-fathers of this app, right? You think of like, hey, we had this little app and it was our thing, and we were there when it didn't work, right? And it was just 1 or 2 users, and then it went to tens, and then hundreds, and then thousands, and now tens of millions. And as that happens, there's still a part of me that says, we're not done, right? Like, there's still this mission. There's billions of people in the world. There's more than 2 billion phones. There's more than 2 billion people with email. And so to have tens of millions of users using our app, we're just scratching the surface. And so I think you just need to make sure that as you go through life and you reach, success or goals or whatever you think was your initial version of success, that you need to challenge yourself or have that motion to keep learning, right? And learning is another thing, right? You really want to learn. Like, it's not just about like doing the same thing. Am I still learning stuff every day? And I am, right? There's new things that I come up with that I hadn't thought of before, or perspectives. A lot of it now is like, I could argue that, hey, I've heard a lot of things, or I've seen a lot of things, and I'm like, oh, I've heard that, but I'm learning more and more to stop and listen. And you may hear something you've heard before, but with a different perspective, and that's incredibly enlightening, right? And like, you can actually learn stuff by just learning more about a topic that you'd never seen from that angle, right? And you never looked at it. Well, for the same reason that, when I go back to places, whether it's an amusement park or a zoo with my daughter, where it's like, oh, I've been to the San Francisco Zoo a bunch of times, or I've been to this museum. But then if you go there with a 5 or 6 year old, like, you have this incredibly different perspective, and they notice things that you would never have noticed or you took for granted. And so I think a lot of that falls into work, right? Like, how the perspective you have on your work, and the way you approach it is less of like, hey, I'm just trying to get through it as quick as possible. Like, enjoy the moment. Like, what are you doing? Are you having fun? Like, is the team you working with, and having fun? Are they having fun? If not, why? And can you go fix that, right? And so I think it's a very long-winded way to get there, but I think having fun and constantly learning.
I think one of the other things I want to talk about was I don't think a lot of people realize, like, the more money, more problems thing is real. Like, it's a good problem to have, but a lot of times it's like, how do you not lose the money that you kept, right? And so it's like, I know that you've talked about your strategy to me before.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. We're in the strategy that, there's lots of strategies, right? I think I'm a huge fan of productivity hacks and like simplicity in life and lists and tracking things, and like everything I do, if I'm going to do it more than once, it's a task, and I put it on my to-do list, and I track it, and it's recurring, and I know that this thing needs to happen every 30 days. I set it to recur every 30 days, and I'm overly diligent on that. I'm kind of anal. Like, people would say that I am, right? Like, in terms of tracking what I do, and I have lists and processes for everything. And I think so the way I think about finances, or the way I think about investing is similar, right? So when I do angel investing, like, whether I'm investing in a small friend's company or investing in something large, I look at it and say, look, this is would I trade the hours that it took me to make that money if I lose it, right? Like, is that a fair trade? And so putting that in the right perspective helps. But just being methodical, right? Like, when I go on trips, like, I have an app that tracks, the 100 and something different things that I could possibly check and pack, and I make sure it's there. And, to the point that it's robotic. I just go through it, and it sounds a little boring, but it also helps me it reduces anxiety, right? Because you don't have to worry, like, hey, I'm leaving for a trip in a couple of days. No worries. I'm just going to bust out the app the night before or the morning of and go through it and make sure I got everything. And half the stuff's already packed, so I don't have to worry about it, because I'm always kind of ready to travel. Or at work, when I'm going to kick off a project, I have a template for that and track through it. And similarly with finances, right? How do you track through kind of the strategy that you're going to take? And the best advice I ever got from somebody, a mentor of mine, was just don't change anything. Like, the first thing you do, oh, I made something, or I made a big, don't change anything. Like, oh, I don't need to go buy a new car, or go buy a bunch of new clothes, or go buy fancy, sports tickets or whatever. Like, yes, you could, but the first is like, don't make rash decisions. And so I think, the ability to just not do anything is actually hard, right? And so, like, I had to keep reminding myself, like, oh, don't go do that. But I could take this extra vacation, or buy something nice for my family. Yeah, exactly. Buy a jet. So don't, right? I think that's the easiest part of the strategy. It's from a explaining it is like to don't change anything, but it's the hardest thing to implement, right? Because it is easy. And then, the number of people that are like, hey, if you have 10, can you give me one? And versions of that, right? That are, sometimes comfortable and sometimes joking and sometimes just uncomfortable because you're just
How many people have you had hit you up for money?
I mean, not counting like investment advisors and stuff, like tens and tens of investment advisors, but I would say like, I don't know. I mean, people, I think it's kind of weird because I am an angel investor, so I'm kind of advertising for people to hit me up for money. So I think from that category, I discount those. But from a generic money requesting thing, I would say tens of people, not hundreds, but tens of people. Like, but they all come under. They're not just like, hey, give me $10. They're always like, hey, would you want to invest in stuff that's clearly not an investable product? Like, hey, they're more like donations, right? So I think of it this way. It's like people that are pitching investments that when you look at them, they're really donations. Like that's the part of it where I'm like, So those are the ones I categorize as people asking for stuff that they probably shouldn't, it's just a little uncomfortable.
I mean, you're in the hub of it all. Like me, I would like, that would be my ultimate like thing that I would look at. I don't know. But I've always wanted to like, cause I know like I enjoy the growth aspect of a company of like, and I'm used to doing everything myself though. And I struggle with a team at times, unless it's like, like Delanave or Andres who, I can get my hands in and do, and then they can do it right. And so actually that's one of the things I'm going to do this fall is take some PHP, MySQL and Laravel classes. Just because my PHP is cutting edge for 2004-ish.
Yeah, we always call it like the 2004 era, PHP, or like before objects existed, and back when you had to be compiled yourself and
extend classes. And,
No, that's good. Yeah, no, I mean the learning thing is awesome. I've been taking some machine learning classes, which just picking things up that keeps you fresh, and even if you don't use it every day in your work, just understanding kind of some of these modern concepts is interesting. And it's great to, kind of be in school again, right? Because they're even when, it's like going to conferences, right? You go to a conference, you're like, oh, I know everything about X topic. And, you've probably heard of it, but it's incredible to hear other people talk and the number of ideas that just spark from like, wow, I should try that for this. Like you make these kind of connections, right? And so even when I go to my wife's company, Alpha Brand Media, runs this conference every year, right? And from her website, Search Engine Journal. And time over time again, I go to the conferences and I'm like, wow, I've heard everything about SEO or Facebook advertising. And every time, every speaker, I learn something, right? I learn something, or I find something that I want to throw a note down to go apply it to my business or a project I'm working on, or just something that's just interesting. And so I think that's a great way to kind of keep fresh. And whether it's conferences or taking classes, I think all of those are really, really good ways to kind of keep yourself in a, not letting your brain rot.
Yeah, for sure. And, that sparked a thing with me because I've gone to a lot of these guys, like whether it's Andy Jenkins or Frank Kern or, a lot of like even Anthony Robbins. Okay. So these guys all like roped themselves off. Like Anthony Robbins is mostly what I'm talking about here. Like you can't talk to Anthony Robbins, right? He's on this pedestal up here with a rope around him, and you can be one of the peasants, right? Around below. And also he never talks money, right? So he's just like that role. Whereas like in some of the info marketers, the bigger ones, they've always got to put themselves on a pedestal, right? And they don't, like if you want to talk to them, it's like 10 grand, to be a part of their inner circle or war room or double diamond platinum group or whatever you want to call it, right? Those things aren't for me. Like, me, I mean, like every conference I'm in the trenches. Like I always say, like I'm a guy of the people or a man of the people or whatever. Like I love talking with everyone. I pound that expo hall and just, like John Chow too, that dude is
just run into whoever, man on the street kind of stuff, and just see who you learn. And that's how we've met some of the greatest people we know, right? Is that through that process, right? And or go to the bar, hanging out at some after conference thing that's, the unconference next door type of stuff. And we've met, many of the people we probably spend more time with today than the speakers or the people that were quote unquote famous in that, 10 years ago.
I saw a guy speak at PubCon, and this would have been like 2005-ish.
Yeah.
And he went on stage and he talked about how there were all these domains out there that were expired, but still had incredible links, but just had expired, that weren't registered anymore. And a lot of people were like, yeah, but how many could there be? You know, blah, 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 just easily dismissed it. And me, I built this, like, basically a crawler of the internet.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I added all these things and I found, you know, 10,000 plus. And, you know, and we had an open marketplace that we sold them. And the best thing was, is we were basically selling air. I mean, we didn't own them. We just gave you the name, like, but we sorted out like if they had military, EDU backlinks, you know, like total backlinks, you know, PR backlinks, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So people would go in there and they would buy like, you know, 50 at a time, you know, and that was back when Google, like a lot of them, like I redirected like 400 of them one time at a subdomain of Shoe Money just to see what it'd do. And it was ranking for high poker terms, like really high poker terms. And it was because like all these guys had made these sites and just churned and burned them. And then it occurred to me, okay, Google bans sites, but I don't think it bans links. So when you 301 them, like they still carried the anchor text, link juice, everything.
Yep.
Yeah. So we're running late here, and I know, and I also just got a text from you too. So it's actually, we're right on the same page. I really appreciate you coming on so much, and I want to catch up with you sometime soon. And,
I'm in Lincoln, or if you're out in the Bay Area, we gotta connect and kind of go from there.
Yeah, for sure. I just spent days out there driving up to LA, and I thought about driving all the way up to San Francisco, but cool, man. I really appreciate everything. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll talk to you next week.
Cool. Take care of that. Bye, Jeremy.
Bye.